invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing number 347, Gather the Spirit. Number 347 in the gray hymnal. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour, the trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
Good morning. And welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. Whether you are sitting here in the sanctuary, live streaming from home, or watching on demand at a later time, I invite you into our circle of belonging, where all are welcome. If you are new to this community, thank you for your presence and your bravery as you find your way in new surroundings. For those newcomers here in person, you are warmly invited to our newcomer welcome in the Redmond Room right after the service. When you exit the double doors, the Redmond Room is to your left as you enter the hallway. There you will find volunteers and staff eager to get to know you and to answer your questions about our faith and this community. For those newcomers live streaming with us, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat so we can greet you personally. You may also visit our website and consider filling out the newcomer survey at uua.org/newcomersurvey. We are glad to have you with us. I am Barbara Lynn, a member of our congregation's Lay Worship Leaders program, and I have the honor of introducing those who will be leading our service today. Our guest, the Reverend Eric Hausman, Dr. Carter Smith, Acting Director of Music Ministries, Stella Anderson, Director of Spiritual Growth and Development, Allison Halerz, Pianist-in-Residence, Mike Halerz, Technology Consultant, Jim McCarger, our storyteller, and guest musician Kira Slovacek, soprano. Translations of the solo pieces and the lyrics to the hymns are provided in the order of service at UUAA.org/OOS. I have a few other quick announcements. Next Sunday, May 28th, we will move to our summer schedule of one service beginning at 10:30 a.m. Those of you making the trip or joining us in the live stream, please remember that beginning next week and throughout the summer, there will be one service only at 10:30. On Sunday, June 4th, 2 weeks from today, we will be holding our congregational meeting. This is a Zoom-only event and will begin at 10:30 with a short worship service, followed directly by the business meeting. Again, attendance will be by Zoom only, and to register for the Zoom link, please visit our website at uuaa.org. Our congregation's annual goods and services auction is being revived after a 4-year absence. Yes. And it will be taking place right here at UUAA on Saturday, June 3rd, from 4 to 7 p.m. The auction folks are hoping you will stop by their table where you can buy tickets, volunteer, or donate an item or event. Our auction is an important fundraiser and community building activity, and we hope to see you there. This month, as we explore the theme of creativity, I find myself considering how and what I create. How does creation move through me? As a deep introvert, I settle into the process within myself, privately. Whether I spend an afternoon experimenting in the kitchen, an hour or so crafting these words, or many weeks building an elf village in the window well of my basement, I play with ideas, follow false leads, discard, correct, rebuild, all on my own. My brain works this way, parsing and examining as I go along, until magically the dish or passage or elf-sized bookshelf emerges. The kaleidoscope turns and a dazzling new image is revealed. These activities feed me and bring my world alive, adding color and dimension. But they are not enough. I need someone to enjoy the meal with me, to share the fantasy life of my elves, to listen to these words. And even more important, I need to escape my own little world and enter into the chaos of shared creation. I need you. Here in this community, we are blessed with a host of co-creators. When we build a collage at a communal table, or create an altar of memento mori, our designs collect and shift and settle under our hands. In song, our voices blend uniquely, never the same way twice. Our social justice work is the forge at which we labor to create a better world. What we build together, the messy miracle of beloved community, arises collaboratively and spontaneously. Each of us is a shard within the kaleidoscope, randomly arranging ourselves against each other. We make ourselves anew, again and again. As we enter more deeply into our time together, I invite you to embrace the wild creative impulses that move through all of us and bring us joy, beauty, and new life. We are gathered for worship.
Good morning. Good morning. We begin our time together this morning, as we do each week, by lighting our chalice. Our chalice reminds us of our connections to one another, our connections to the broader community of Unitarian Universalists, and our connections to our living tradition. We light our chalice each week to remind us of the spark of love, hope, and possibility that resides within each of our hearts. To help us light our chalice this morning, I'm happy to invite forward Stella Anderson. And if you are joining us virtually this morning, I would like to invite each of you to take this moment to grab your chalice or a candle and light it along with us here. And then feel free to put a message in the chat saying the chalice is lit wherever you may be joining us from. And now, would you please join your voices as we say, "We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace." Thank you. Another way we will begin our time together this morning, just as we do each week, is by collectively speaking the words of our community's covenant. Our covenant reminds us of the promises that we make to one another about how we strive to be in relationship with each other as we, each of us, are journeying towards a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. As a community, we promise to support, to care for, and to hold up one another along this journey. And so let us join our voices once again in speaking the words of our covenant. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth and love, and to help one another. Thank you.
Spangled heavens a shining frame, the great original proclaim.
Would you repeat after me?
The spacious firmament on high, the spacious firmament on high, with all the blue ethereal sky, with all the blue ethereal sky, and spangled heavens a shining frame, and spangled heavens a shining frame, the
Good morning. In the first service, I had this revelation moment when Stella reminded me that I can take off my mask. And I took it off, and it was like... And I swear I heard someone up front go, "He's got a beard." My name is James McCargar, he, him, his. I serve UUAA as a choir member and as a member of the music ambassador team. I begin our time for all ages with an invitation to all. If you wish, please close your eyes briefly while I'm reading. Open them up as you wish before I actually start reading the book. Imagine nothingness, a speck, a point, a spark, a moment, an instant, a flash, creation, a singularity in space and time. Imagine your first view of Saturn's rings snapping into view through the eyepiece of a simple telescope. This is me, age 8. Picture the sudden emergence of a new spectacular view, the reward of a strenuous hike. Rocks suspended above a glorious alpine lake in the Canadian Rockies. This is me as a young man with my wife, Sherry. I remember the instant following my mother's last living breath, which I only recognized in the sudden stillness. Such rare moments or experiences are so brain-igniting or soul-infusing or heart-vibrating or even heart-rending that they move me beyond time, that is, timeless. They become so deeply rooted, yet I can instantly retrieve the emotion or the insight, including the timelessness, head to toe, head to heart, across all my senses. For me, and I suspect likewise for you, no matter your age, these specks that somehow burn outside time are often the spark of my own joy and creativity for my connection with others in community and to my humanity. Join me now, young people who are busy down here creating, by the way, if you can't see from the back. Young people and not young people, for the stuff of creation, the stuff of life. Our story for all ages, the stuff of stars, by Newbery Honor author Marion Dane Bauer and Caldecott Honor illustrator Aqua Holmes. In the dark, in the dark, in the deep, deep dark, a speck floated, invisible as thought, weighty as God. There was yet no time. There was yet no space, no up, no down, no edge, no center. No earth with soaring hawks, scuttling beetles, trees reaching for the sky. There was no sky, no you, no me. Only the speck, waiting, waiting. And then the beginning of all beginnings went bang! And in a trillionth of a second, our universe was born. A cloud of gas, unfolded, unfurled, zigged, zagged, stretched, collided, expanded, 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 bits bumped, gathered, fused. And throughout the cosmos, stars caught fire. Trillions of stars, but still no planets to attend those stars. And if no planets, then no oceans, no mountains, no hippopotami, no violets blooming in a shady wood, no crickets singing in the night, no day, no night. The stars burned and burned. They burned so long and so hot that some of them exploded, flinging stardust everywhere. And the ash of those dying stars gathered into planets, and the planets circled other stars. But still, no bluebirds, no butterflies, still no snails, no giraffes, still no you, no me. The planets closest to their star stayed very hot. The ones far away grew very cold. But one lucky planet, a fragile blue ball we call Earth, was neither too far nor too near. It circled its yellow star, the one we call the sun, from just the right distance, with just the right tilt, to be sometimes warm, sometimes cool. Perfect for turning that starry stuff into mitochondria, jellyfish, spiders, and ferns, and sharks, and daisies, and galloping horses. Again and again, stardust gave birth to stardust. Dinosaurs lived and died, making room for humans. Our great-great-great-grandparents and all before them lived and died, making room for more and more children. Then one day, in the dark, in the deep, deep dark, another speck floated, invisible as dreams, special as love. Waiting, dividing, changing, growing, until at last you burst into the world. You took a big breath of the same air once breathed by woolly mammoths. You cried tears that were once salty seas. Your hair once the carbon in a leaf. You and the velvet moss, the caterpillars, the lions, you and the singing whales, the larks, the frogs, you and me, loving you, all of us, the stuff of stars.
Now is the time in our service when we sing our children to their last day of programs for this congregational year. But before we go, I want to make a quick announcement that next week's service, the first 10:30 and only service of the summer, is going to be for all ages, and I want to invite everybody, but specifically the children, to wear pajamas. And you will discover why in a week. So, with that, I invite all of our young people to follow their teachers out of the sanctuary as the congregation sings with love.
Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine.
The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. So many of us have found our way to this community because of the good work happening every day. For this month's Social Justice Connection, we lift up the incredible achievements of Habitat for Humanity. My first volunteer role here was working on a house. I was newly pregnant for the first time and equal parts terrified and excited. And I remember feeling so proud that just as I was starting my own family, I got the chance to help another family find a stable and secure future. And I have this congregation's partnership with Habitat to thank for that. Here with us to share more about this special partnership are Mike Muha and Sandy Simon.
Good morning, afternoon almost. I'm Mike Muha,
And I'm Sandy Simon.
and we're here as UUAA's Habitat for Humanity team. We want to thank you all for the past 23 years of above and beyond support for the Habitat for Humanity projects. Whether you've worked on site with hammers and nails, provided lunches for the workers, which we really look forward to and appreciate, or donated some of the money it takes for the increasingly costly home renovations.
So to this date, this congregation, working along with 13 other congregations in the area, have helped 37 families move into homes in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. Over 70 children are living in these homes. And they're all safe, energy efficient, well-built homes. Maybe some of you, while you were working on site, met the Treadwell family. They're one of our Good News families that came out a lot, and so you may recognize them. They're featured in this video we want to play for you.
Well, I'm Melvin, and this is my wife, Najma. We have 4 children, Jaheem, Joshua, Janiyah, and John. And we are the Treadwells.
Hi, my name is CJ. I am a proud new homeowner of a Habitat house.
Before Habitat, we moved from place to place because when you're in apartments or urban houses, the rent will continue to rise.
My previous apartment was a studio, which I paid more for than this house, and it was infested with bed bugs, and all my apparel and rugs were ruined.
It's really a helping hand here. We're here to help you to come up, you know, to learn to be established, to have ownership, to have roots, you know, to have a legacy to leave for your children, or even if, you know, you're single, to have something that you are able to call your own.
The misconception is grand. They think it's just for poor people, but it's not for poor people. It's for people, like middle class and anybody, just to help them get a leg up, to get into a house.
They want to set you up to succeed. That is their whole goal.
So this year, we'll be renovating another home in Ypsilanti. This work is very much a part of UUAA's 2050's goals. Habitat houses are both are energy efficient, help both the families that live in the houses and the Ypsilanti environment. Renovating homes also helps stabilize the neighborhoods, makes them more resilient. We provide people with homes that they love.
I love my house because my mom makes peanut butter cookies and they are so good.
I love my house because of my room, so that I have more room to put my dresser and put more stuff on top of my dresser.
I love my house because my LPS have a place to stay.
I love my house because the ceiling we have shelters, so the rain, so it can keep the rain out. Like if the rain goes on the roof, it'll just slide right off.
I love my house because of the windows, because like when you like open the blinds, it's so like bright, and I really like that.
I love my house because of two fairy kings.
I love my house because when I go around the backyard, I get to rake the leaves up into a giant pile, the biggest pile in the world. Then I get to jump in them, and it's really fun.
I love my house because of the basement, because we have more room to put our toys and we can invite friends over.
I love my house because I get to have a dance party.
I love my house because my kids have a safe place to grow up in.
So we're going to be in the social hall. If you'd like to learn more about the Habitat for Humanity projects, come see us there or on the website uuaa.org/H4H.
Thank you, Mike and Sandy. I feel inspired every day, bearing witness to our community's commitment to peace, justice, love, and service. One of the ways that we demonstrate our commitment each week is through the spiritual practice of our offering. It's a reminder that when each of us gives of our time, energy, money, talents, and presence, we can create a community that can do so much more together than we could ever do apart. There are many ways to give. You can drop cash or checks in the collection baskets as they pass through the rows, and for those that prefer a digital option, you can text UUAA to 73256, or you can go to uuaa.org/giving. However you give, thank you for your generosity and for your commitment to a brighter future that we are all building together. Today's offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Klinget und die zarten Blumen küsst, wie der Weg im Schatten singet und das nahe Liebchen grüßt. Wie die Lichter zitternd schweifen und das Gras sich grüner freut, wie die Tannen weiten greifen und die Blut streut. In den Linde süße Düfte, in der Tannen Riesenlaut, in dem Spiel der Sommerlüfte glänzet sie aus Frühlingsbraut. Aber Wald und Vogel singen, Düfter, Blüten haltet ein, Licht verdunkeln
Will the ushers please come forward with the collection baskets? And as they do, I invite you to rise in body or spirit wherever you may be and say with me the words of dedication. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you.
Our reading this morning is a poem by Billy Collins entitled Aristotle. This is a poem in 3 parts, and I will be reading the first part. This is the beginning. Almost anything can happen. This is where you find the creation of light, a fish wriggling onto land, the first word of Paradise Lost on an empty page. Think of an egg, the letter A woman ironing on a bare stage as the heavy curtain rises. This is the very beginning. The first-person narrator introduces himself, tells us about his lineage. The mezzo-soprano stands in the wings. Here, the climbers are studying a map or pulling on their long woolen socks. This is early on, years before the ark, dawn. The profile of an animal is being smeared on the wall of a cave, and you have not yet learned to crawl. This is the opening, the gambit, a pawn moving forward an inch. This is your first night with her, your first night without her. This is the first part, where the wheels begin to turn, where the elevator begins its ascent, before the doors lurch apart. So ends our reading.
Quid colliru, ach,
So I imagine that at the beginning of time, there was a long, awkward silence. This is not the story that makes it into Scripture, but I do wonder, before that very first word, what was happening. It was probably a long time, possibly an eternity, maybe outside of the realm of time altogether. But I do think that the preferred story is not even in my voice, but in the voice of someone like James Earl Jones. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness night, and there was evening and morning that first day. Another version of that later on in the New Testament is in the book of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word was in the beginning with God, and all things came into being through this, not through God, but through the Word. Back into Genesis, the creation being spoken into existence, the power of the spoken word. Now, the Greek for that word is a broader term. It's logos, the same word we use for logic and for reasoning, and that was language itself and the power of creation through the word and through the divine. Or if you prefer poets over scripture, we could read Ovid. When God, whichever of the gods it was, had thus arranged in order and resolved that chaotic mass and reduced it into cosmic parts, first the earth was molded into a mighty ball so that it would be the same on all different sides, and that no region might be without its own form of animate life. The stars and divine forms occupied the floor of heaven. The sea fell to the shining fishes for their home. Earth received the beasts, and the mobile air the birds. And then humans were born. Although all the animals were having heads that were faced forwards or to the sides or down, but not gazing up towards the heavens. For that, humans had an upright posture and with faces turned towards heaven. We do look to the heavens sometimes and to the stars. And indeed, Mr. McLaughlin would be very proud at this moment. He was my 8th grade Latin teacher, and he would be excited not only for the origin stories, but the fact that I quoted Ovid. Go Latin. Mr. McLaughlin was one of those teachers, although he was teaching Latin, he talked to you about everything. So as an 8th grader, when you're having an existential crisis, Mr. McLaughlin would sit there patiently and talk about it. For example, when you try to imagine the vastness of the universe, try imagining the edge of the universe, that edge where there's nothing afterwards. Or does it go on for infinity? I don't know how your mind works, but I can't quite wrap my head around it never stopping. But if I imagine an end to it, I can't imagine like what's on the other side of the fence. And that goes in terms of physical space, but also in terms of time. And so in our own creation stories, when we think of going backwards, whether it's an initial glorious Big Bang or an act of God, those are beautiful and impactful origin stories. And I'm still curious, well, what was it like before then? What was going on? You know, when I picture how the universe is unfolding, and there's so much in terms of the glory of creation as bearing testimony to whether it's a divine hand in the world or something miraculous happening, that things are designed so intricately well as they are. And sometimes I catch glimpses of that. But to be honest, sometimes it looks like there's so much chaos in the world that it's a little more like an episode of A-Team. I don't know, anybody remember that show back from the 80s where there's all this chaos for like 45 minutes, and then at the end it all comes together, and then Hannibal's sitting there back saying, I love it when a plan comes together. It's another model I have for God. Through all of these things that appear to us, at any rate, like chaos, that there is something that unifies that, ties it back together in a moment of yes. But there are reasons not to like origin stories. The first is that they tend to be conversation stoppers. Like if you're talking about, like, oh, what happened at the beginning? Oh, yeah, it's the Big Bang. And so what came before then? Oh, no, nothing. Just don't look behind the curtain. There's nothing to see there. You know, whether it's God in religion class or Big Bang in elementary school science class. There's just no further conversation, and so it just sort of stops. Unless, of course, I've heard this story told, attributed to different people, but I heard it attributed to William James, who was talking with a lecture series about origin stories, and somebody said, well, it's easy to explain what comes before that. You know, and they were talking about different stories, some that the earth is on the back of an elephant, others that it's on the back of a turtle. And so when William James asked the interlocutor, what is underneath the turtle? Like, so what's under the earth? It's the turtle. What's underneath the turtle? And she looks back at William James and says, oh, it's quite simple. It's turtles all the way down. So infinite regress might be an answer, but it is a challenge to move the conversation with a defining moment of creation. You know, and a second reason that origin stories are difficult is that they sometimes challenge us personally and psychologically. Sometimes we have a desire to be self-created. You know, another Latin term for Mr. McLaughlin is causa sui, is a term sometimes used of this notion that we like to be self-made people or pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, that kind of thing, when we're often more indebted than that. And one illustration that illustrates this, I think quite well, you be the judge, and I apologize in advance. If you're on the internet, you can just mute this part, okay? So I spent a summer as a tour guide on a mountain in Guatemala. And at the beginning, we'd always do a team building exercise to get to know each other. This was not my icebreaker question, but I thought it was a fascinating one when a colleague of mine used it. The question is, when is the last time you pooped in your pants? I think that's the first, I've been preaching a while, that's the first time I've said pooped in a sermon. But what's fascinating is the range of responses we would get from the hikers. You know, people were preparing and training to do this big hike, and you know, there was one college kid who said, what day of the week is it? Oh, it's a Thursday? Yeah, 4 days. Don't eat those street tacos. Do not eat the street tacos. But there was also a middle-aged woman who really, when it was her turn to answer the question, she says, no, I don't do that. And we're like, well, we're not asking now, but have you ever? No, never. I'm like, really? Never? How about when you were 2 or 1? No, no. That own sense of denial of like, no. I am a fully fledged person, or like whatever goes into that. Like there was a sense of denial, and I think that ties to some of our origin stories where our beginnings are much more humble, intertwined, and complicated than we sometimes like to think, and that we're not always at our peak, that we have come through a tremendous journey to be where we are in this present moment. The third reason that some people don't like origin stories is the fault of a dead German philosopher by the name of Feuerbach. In the 1800s, he really focused on applying a psychological principle of projection into mainstream theology, which goes something like this. We have internal values, but we don't always articulate them as our own, and so we take them and put them on another object, such as God. And so if we highly value love, then we might be a good universalist and posit an all-loving God. But it's this taking of something internal and imagining it to be external, when that whole enterprise is an act of creation and imagination itself. I sense that that is sometimes in conversations today. And I wonder, how much do creation stories even matter? Would it change how you live today? Whether you go on a Habitat for Humanity build or not? Would it make a difference? And it does raise the question of creation and purpose in general. I'll give a quick summary here of a debate I'm putting up between Aristotle and Kurt Vonnegut. They have not met in real life. Aristotle says it's the creator who gets to determine the purpose of the created object. Whether you are a painter, a writer, a carpenter, whoever you are that's doing the creating, you determine the purpose. It doesn't matter what the people in the museum think. Kurt Vonnegut gives another creation story as an illustration. He writes, "In the beginning, God created the earth and looked upon it in cosmic loneliness. And God said, 'Let us make living creatures out of mud, so the mud can see what we have done.' And God created every living creature that now moveth, and one was a person. Mud, as human alone could speak. God leaned close to mud as the person sat up, looked around, and spoke. The person blinked. 'What is the purpose of all this?' 'Everything must have a purpose?' asked God. 'Certainly,' said the person. 'Then I leave it to you to think of one that would explain all of this,' said God, and went away." Now that's a particular form of deism and a disengaged divine presence in the world, but it does highlight the question of where does the sense of meaning and purpose come in relation to our own origin stories. In some ways, this sets up a false dichotomy. Life, as in art, isn't all about the author's intentions, nor is it all about the meaning ascribed to it by the viewer. It's messier, more entwined, and even co-created. The sense of co-creation, I think, is part of how Goethe, the German poet, describes creativity, where it requires a sense of space and unknowing, but also a cultural context of shared information. And creativity can happen in that gap where you know some things and then you don't know some things. And if we were to lean into a theology that even extended this to the divine, that might be even freeing, to imagine a God that doesn't need to have everything planned out, but a divine presence that doesn't necessarily know how the story ends. And my hope is best summed up in the work of an unlikely creative artist, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson writes, "Consciousness expresses itself through creation. This world we live in is the dance of the Creator. Dancers come and go in the twinkling of an eye, but the dance lives on. On many an occasion when I am dancing, I have felt touched by something sacred. In those moments, I felt my spirit soar and become one with everything that exists. I become the stars and the moon. I become the lover and the beloved. I become the victor and the vanquished. I become the master and the slave. I become the singer and the song. I become the knower and the known. I keep on dancing. Then it is the eternal dance of creation. The Creator and creation merge into one wholeness of joy. I keep on dancing and dancing and dancing until there's only dance." My invitation for us is to be co-creators in this world, bringing a sense of freedom and play and creativity in divine image. For if we're created in God's image, then surely we carry out that process in homage. And if not, it's still one of the greatest things that we know. Now, I sometimes like to give homework, and I apologize in advance. This is a character flaw of mine. But I've also noticed that sometimes when I give homework, not everybody does it, and so we're going to take some class time to do this. And so it'll be for everyone. You know, if you're online too, if you're live streaming, you can do it right now, and if you're watching this at some future date or even a future one of ourselves here looking back, you get to do it a second or third time. It gets complicated, but the assignment is this. It's two parts. First part is take just 1 minute to think of something you would enjoy creating this week. It doesn't have to be grandiose, it could be anything. It could be a haiku or doodling on the back of the order of service. But take 1 minute to think of something and then 1 minute to share with a neighbor sitting in these seats here or sitting next to you on the sofa online or just put in the chat box. And so we'll start just with a minute to think. When you have something, you can start sharing with a neighbor. I'm glad you have such good ideas so quickly, too. I invite you to continue sharing during coffee hour and in the days to come. And for right now, let's lift up some of the joys of creation and different ways of expressing that in our closing hymn.
I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and turn to number 1030 in the teal hymnal. We're going to join in singing Siyahamba, but we'll sing a little different text today, okay? 4 verses. We are dancing, we are doodling, we are painting, and we are dreaming. Don't worry, you don't have to remember them all. I'll call them out in between, okay? But I invite you to rise, and let's join together in singing number 1030. We are dancing. We are dancing in the light of God. 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 We are dancing. Oh, we are dancing in the light of God. We are dancing. We are doodling. We are doodling in the light of God. 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 We are doodling. Oh, we are doodling in the light of God. We are doodling. We are painting. We are painting in the light of God. 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 We are painting. Oh, we are painting in the light of God. We are painting. We are dreaming. We are dreaming in the light of God. 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 We are dreaming. Oh, we are dreaming in the light of God. We are dreaming.
If here you have a little more dance in your heart, take that into the streets and dance it up. If you are inspired to paint, draw, create stories, whatever that is, remember that and share it with the world, and may we ever be co-creators in this ongoing mystery. May it be so, and go in peace, dear friends.